Good afternoon and live from Texas, this is The Will Cain Show. Right now, live in Los Angeles, the showdown over Trump's immigration crackdown. It's moved from the streets to the courtroom. Now, this move comes 1 month after we saw scenes like this in Los Angeles. Protesters setting cars on fire, holding up traffic, flying Mexican flags. And we can't forget about this call to action from an elected official, an LA area vice mayor.
Not for nothing, but I want to know where all the cholos are at in Los Angeles. 18th Street, Florencia. Where's the leadership at? They tag everything up, claiming hood. And now that your hood's being invaded by the biggest gang there is, there ain't a peep out of you. We're out there like fighting our turn, protecting our turn, protecting our people. And like, where you at? So whoever's the leadership over there, just get your members in order.
Maybe not cholos, maybe not 18th Street, but now a gang of lawyers and a coalition of migrants, activists, and local governments are trying to force changes in the way that federal agents make arrests. The activists argue the arrests are racially targeted and illegal. The government says its procedures follow the law. The big question is whether or not the judge will constrain how agents are arresting illegal immigrants. As we wait updates from the courtroom, let's dig in a bit on the question of legality and constitutionality. The plaintiffs write in their argument, defendants have deployed marauding, masked, and unarmed or armed agents to conduct suspicionless stops of thousands of Latine people. I'm not mispronouncing that word, and I want you to read it on your screen exactly as it is written for a courtroom. Latine. Had to Google it, had to look it up. It's a new term. And reading from Google AI, it's a gender neuter term used to refer to people of Latin American heritage. So they have replaced Latinx with Latine and are using it in court filings. Now, they continue to write, in an extraordinary campaign of targeting people based on nothing more than the color of their skin, and in some cases where they live or work. The Fourth Amendment requires seizures be reasonable. Now, you don't have to be a fan of Cheech and Chong to know that illegal immigration raids have a long history in the United States. You've seen the scenes, running off, screaming, La Migra. But we have also had the Fourth Amendment, which reads as follows. The right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated, and no warrant shall be issued but upon probable cause. In layman's terms, that means individuals are protected from unreasonable searches and seizures and requires law enforcement to have a warrant supported by probable cause. Now, here's the government's argument, though, in response. It's that citizens and illegal immigrants do not have the same constitutional protection. Federal agents use a totality of circumstances approach when in the field and determining whether they have a reasonable suspicion to target an alien. Consistent with the totality of circumstances approach, agents may consider the location of the encounter. Contrary to plaintiffs' argument, it was not their appearance alone that caused the officers to approach plaintiffs, even though appearance may in some cases be a relevant factor in determining whether immigration officers were justified in making an investigatory seizure. Illegal immigrants having fewer constitutional protections than United States citizens is the reason you hear the language difference between probable cause and reasonable suspicion. Let's dive in with immigration attorney Esther Valdez-Clayton. Esther, thanks so much for being with us here. You're an immigration attorney. I'm familiar with the Fourth Amendment of the United States, and we, everyone watching, hold it near and dear as we do the entire United States Constitution. But it seems the plaintiff's argument tries to make a Fourth Amendment case without distinguishing the difference between U.S. citizens and illegal immigrants. And the Supreme Court of the United States does see a difference when applying the Constitution.
That's exactly right, Will. The immigration advocates, including the mayor of LA, Karen Bass, they purposely don't want to differentiate between legal immigrants who are law-abiding and supporting of the Constitution and illegal immigrants because they want to perpetuate the economic reality that is in Los Angeles, that they depend on economic peonage and servitude of Latino labor. And the ridiculousness of that complaint that you just read, one can't help but not laugh because there's no such thing as Latin A. What they're trying to do is they are trying to perpetuate fear throughout the Latino and Latina communities And they themselves are doing the fear mongering because they're trying to raise allegations of racial profiling that in essence is not happening. It's not only unconstitutional, but the Department of Homeland Security, along with ICE, they are not racial profiling Latinos. I live in Southern California. ICE is hot, and I have yet not been kidnapped off the sidewalks here in Southern California.
Just as an aside that I cannot avoid, it's just too tempting, Esther. I took Spanish in school. I've grown up in Texas. I can speak very rudimentary Spanglish. I presume that you're somewhat familiar with the Spanish language. Have you ever heard of Latine? Is that new? It seems to be a brand new replacement for Latinx. Gender neutral. No Latino, no Latina. Latine?
Again, they're trying to colonialize and sabotage the Spanish language to suit their political correctness. That is ridiculous, along with the allegations of racial profiling, the kidnapping, and again, they're trying to create and amass fear along the Latino immigrants so that then we have more protests and more raids and more acts of violence, because in effect, that's their end game. They just want an insurrection to be able to challenge the Trump administration.
Colonizing the Spanish language, creating a black market of labor that you describe as peonage. But let's return to the Constitution and the law. The person in the United States not here legally or not a United States citizen is not avowed to the same constitutional protections. That doesn't mean they do not have any constitutional protections, but not the same level of constitutional protections as a citizen. So the standard for a law enforcement interaction drops to something like reasonable suspicion. And then all of this, Esther, goes into that reasonable suspicion. These are ICE policies for detaining an individual. They look at detention served to secure individuals for immigration proceedings. Some are subjected to mandatory detention, including certain criminal offenses and terrorism-related grounds. ICE exercises discretion on a case-by-case basis, flight risk, public safety risk, humanitarian factors. I would presume this in combination with, as admitted in the response, their appearance, where they're found, all play into, does it amount to reasonable suspicion and therefore satisfying the Fourth Amendment of the U.S. Constitution?
We need to also understand that ICE agents are carrying warrants, and in the warrants, it's not only naming the suspect, but also the individual immigration allegations. And this person is going to have due process, just not at the same level as lawful permanent residents or even U.S. citizens. Also because the length of their continuous presence in the United States. For example, if a person's here less than 2 years, that's an expedited removal. No, they don't get a day in court. No, they don't get a court-appointed attorney. They go get a ticket back home to where they belong. And that's what the allegations, that's why they're so superfluous and they're superficial. They're just meant to deter and detain and stop the inevitable, which are the immigration raids in Los Angeles.
All right. Incredible conversation. Thank you so much, Esther, for both your legal analysis and teaching us about the newest trends in Spanish language. All right, also today, the Trump